stock, like it may grind higher, but usually like you'll see kind of like a little consolidation and a pull. So anytime we get this gap, like it's like this is a decent sized gap, we need to pull it back into the EMAs a little bit, and then what we'll start to do is kind of ride off into the sunset. It looks like kind of this like short term, mini, very very mini short term micro correction is over. So we're just back on our way. We also, right, we held the 50 SMA on the S&P. We haven't tested that since November, so this is a very bullish thing. We've held support on the Dow. So far, for me at least, I think this is just all systems is a go thing. There's going to be probably a couple things that everybody needs to just keep track of today, which is what? The platform issues where platforms were getting dusted yesterday. That was no fun. That was definitely no fun. You have platform issues across the board for the most part, except probably Interactive Brokers. They typically have the because they got their platform is like from like 1982, so usually they don't have any problems. There's nothing on them. Yeah. All right, let's go in and see what's going on in the pre. I think you just trade as is. I wouldn't worry too much about the indexes right now, just because we had that big trend yesterday, and it looks like on all the indexes we've remounted and held above that 50 SMA, which is very, very important. Let's take a look and see what kind of news plays are going on. It is earnings season. Now, the market has been pumping so hard for a while that, used to be an earnings season, like all these stocks would actually have earnings out. But now that the full-blown pump is going, none of these stocks probably even have earnings out. Things are just getting pushed around. So you have to actually sift through and figure out like which ones, right, are earnings plays versus which ones are just like, hey, we're Gap City and doing what we're doing. I'll be staying away from these kind of small caps. This MBRX is pumping today because they had a reverse split on it. That's not really anything that's like scalable. So this fucking Sava's $30. Ain't that some shit? That's interesting. So this Sava's got 7 million share float. Even with this ramp, like it's still like a pretty micro float stock. So you can see you had like this big trend here. Shares halted. News pending, says lead drug chemical name changed to blah 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 blah. Shares halted. News pending. Blah 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 blah. So this something like this, if it's got the heat, it's not a penny stock at least. Like you've got a normal price. When you get the low float stocks, but they're a little bit higher price, they can really skip around and start to fly. Like I would actually, I would add this to the list. Now, the question on that Sava is going to be, all right, so it's flying around. You're going to need to check and see if, like, your platform is working fast enough. Even when the platforms were, like, working yesterday, they weren't necessarily working. Like, they still weren't fast. And if you're not going to have, like, fast executions, then you can't trade something like this because you could hit the buy button and then it could just like like rats on a wheel, and then before you know it, right, you're like getting filled like $5, and something like this. Like if you got $4 range in 10 minutes, you'll get your ass smoked out. Prison style. You don't even want to be doing that. All right, TVTX, Travere Therapeutics, blah 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 blah. You know what? This is also, why are biotechs so hot right now? So you can see this is also like a nice rounding pattern. You're probably getting closer to a breakout spot. It's actually got enough liquidity over here. 405,000 shares is a nice little sweet spot on it. I'd actually, if the volume holds on this, like I'd actually put that on the list too. UU junk. So it looks like CCIV is busting out the highs. Look at this thing. I know it from turn to hero real fast, didn't it? This thing went from turn to hero real fast. I wouldn't chase a gap up on this, In general, we had this was at least most of our profits from yesterday. It does move really clean because it is a little bit of a thicker stock in terms of the float. I wouldn't chase like a 12% gap up on this because it's on the day 3. It actually might fade off a little bit back into 18. If it dumps at the open and you start to hold this zone, like I would say anywhere from 18 to 16.65, that's your sweet spot right there. If you start to hold into this zone, which was like the big support from yesterday, then I would, I would take a little goose and a gander on that one. That one is probably top of the list. VXRT, this is another one that's, this one you're going to have much more trouble playing because it's super long in the tooth. Now, in this market, like up 300% in a few days is not long in the tooth, where traditionally that would be, like this would be a double top and we would be shorting it. In this market, that's not necessarily, even though I would want to, I have to worry about Jason, going in balls deep and blowing all, his life savings. So whether I want to or not, I can't, just out of, for leadership possibilities. But this is more of like a double top type of setting over there. Just can't do it. We can't do it. It's not a good market to short. Y10, junk. Yo, so this CCIV is on a ramp here. I don't know when they're announcing the news with Lucid Motors, but probably nothing. Now this I can get behind. So you can see here, you got like this rounding pattern over here on FRSX. You've remounted the 9 EMA this morning. Like this is still, like it's still layering up like into, more of a breakout spot. It trades a little bit thick. Like it doesn't really trade like necessarily like, like a pump and dumpy kind of stock. Like it usually has really good liquidity. It's more of a grinder. Like I would actually put this on the list. I think this one probably gets back into the 11s and then breaks out at some point. That's going to be, top of the list. CVLB, this was a, I don't know about that one. That's up to many days in a row. HCNP. Yo, so this is like this one's got a monster cock spread on it. I really like actually that location on this one. You've got like a nice level of breakout. The problem with this bad boy is that it's illiquid. So like you start to try to goose and a gander on this thing and you just have like a monster spread on it. So that's probably going to be no good. Egypt, no. So I do like this Futu. I think Futu and Tiger both held their supports really well. So both of these are brokers, essentially, in China. And you got this one had a big run, but you pull back into the 9 and you're starting to kind of grind back through. I do think this one probably in the next few days attacks highs. Keep an eye on 115. If you start at the open, if you pull back a little bit, like we don't want to chase an 8% gap up. Like we're not animals here. We don't want to chase an 8% gap up. If this thing pulls back or just starts to do a little bit of a marination station right under that 115 spot, that's when we want to take this thing out. If it takes it out, I think you're going to probably see this thing cruise back into highs. What was the other Chinese broker we always keep an eye on? Oh yeah, Tiger, right? So this Tiger is like the Robin Hood of China. This is another one, like you had like a big push to 20, nice rounding pattern, remounting the 9. It had a nice trend on it yesterday. Hold on here. You can see like this is like easy pickings when you have this kind of, this is like your go-to kind of thing on especially Chinese stocks. They'll usually push higher. Once you start to see them kind of marinate right at the EMAs, like that 920 spot, once they start to hold, you'll start to get some action on this thing. That was a miss on my end. I had it on the list and I just fucking forgot about it. 20 is a breakout spot on this one. Can't chase it up 5%. You want to do the same thing? Kind of like yesterday. Like these things always pull. Like Chinese stocks are just notorious for that. I don't know what it is in the share characteristics, but they seem to just always pull right at the open. So like this is kind of what you want to see. You see even Futu yesterday, right? Like it doesn't want to ORB. What it'll do is it'll pull back into the 9 EMA and it'll start to hold. And then you start to really, really get this thing pushing LU is a stock I've been watching, Mr. Rice. You just can't hold it into an earnings report, right? Like, that's the ultimate YOLO, right? If you hold a Chinese stock into earnings, that is the ultimate, right? That's the ultimate YOLO. At that point, you might as well divorce your wife, dump your kids, go to Mexico, hole up in a strip club for like 15 days, do some meth, smoke some crack. You'll come out with 6 tattoos and a new wife. She'll be like between the ages of 19, 21, not speak English. You'll be like, what the fuck happened? But it could work out. That's the way. You can't hold these things through earnings, especially China. Can't do it. But I do like the overall look of it. We just don't want to get into this. Donkey Kong is like another one that's kind of breaking out, but not really a priority. That thing sucks to trade. Beaky, do you love me? Junk. Hey, JMIA the GOAT. JMIA the GOAT is, man, fucker never waits. I was hoping for red to green on this thing. Hey, this thing is taking out its flag over here. First dip on this one. Like, you see like this monster kind of trending to the day. You can always go in and man, that's a big trend over here. First dip on this one, we're taking it. Now, you don't want to chase a gap up on this because it's going to touch the top of the Bollinger Band. So that's like not going to be anything you want to do. But this is, first of all, JMI is the GOAT. And the GOAT deserves respect. Any pull on this one, man, if we get 65 at the first pull on this, we're coming in hot on this thing. I mean, it's the Amazon of Africa. What could go wrong? Right? Like, what could go wrong? Nothing. Add JMI to the list. That's top of the list. First dip, though. All right. Let's add that thing to the list. I like it. So we got buckets so far over here, right? Which is, you got your virus names. That's your INO, VXRT, right? INVAX. That's like those are the big trenders the last few days. So, that's your first kind of bucket. Then you got your earnings plays that are, and gappers that are coming up. Like, oh man, like how's Uber gapping up 5% pass? Bum, chunk. Yo, this hole actually probably will have a chance today. It's getting sold off at the pre. This one has already got 8 million shares in volume. It looks like it's a new SPAC deal. We don't know what it's going to look like. There's probably some sellers coming in that are have been in from over here. Once they clear out, this thing should be okay. I keep actually an eye on this one. If it starts to base out into the midday, end of day, then, we're going to be good. Tyler, I mean, if you can only watch 6, then, get a real job. Work at a car wash. Right? Let the big boys make the money. I put this on the list too. EH, pull back to the 9 and a go. UAVS, breakout, pull back into 20, rebound to 9. These are all top of the list. MGI. Hey, the I can only excuse is the worst excuse ever. I can only, right? I can only work 9 to 5, guys. Okay? I can only eat organic food in prison. I can only is the worst statement ever. Yo, MGI is hot. Boom. If this thing pulls back into 40 at the open, we're hitting this one. Well, first of all, every stock is gapping, Kumar. It's not actually, I don't want to. It's just that the market's gapping, so all these stocks are gapping. PLTR, breakout, pull back to the 9. Let this thing marinate for a little bit. I think we should, if we get out of 35, then we'll be good to go. We'll be good to go, and it'll start to curl its way up. Frankly, with so many stocks just flying around already in the pre-market, this one may get picked up at some point. Now, it was trading like shit yesterday, so we do have to, take that like into, and be cognizant of it. I think if you want pod stocks, Grow G's coming off support, like it tested into 50 SMA. TLRY looks okay, but you can see here on the tails on TLRY. See these tails here? These are sellers coming in hot. So these are going to have to like clear out. There's a certain amount of supply that's like sitting here in this particular area that needs to be just churned out. But this is like an hourly chart. You can see like it is shaping up. You got your thrust, you got your consolidation, but whatever amount of supply is over here, it's going to have to test, and absorb it, Denver. If it can, then you're good to go, all right? NNOX. Man, this thing is it's a thin little noodle, but this is also a breakout pullback. I think we got to come in hot on that one too. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. Workhorse is a daily trader. We red to green this thing. It had a monster push. This and JMIA, I think, are the faves for today. And the reason is that they're just the easiest traders, obviously. They always have been. But like this has got a red open on this one. That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Well, I actually have more than that, but I narrowed it down to 30 for you guys. This is the big game, people. This is the big game. Hey, if you want one stock, you want one shot, one stock, go get a job. Boom, boom, boom. That's hot too. You can come in. It's probably at some point RMO and XL will get picked up, but they are both in that turd zone. I think XL looks just a little bit better because it's sitting over these MAs and you're starting to like cross out of it. It's got a chance. It's got a chance. We just don't know like how hot it is. It's been acting like a turd, and so it becomes one of those things of like how much, right? Like how much juice do we have? Good. I would stay away from all these kind of stocks like AMC, EXP. I'm not even putting them on my list. These things are hoes. Like, I mean, do you want to really get caught up in, right? So that kind of game, especially when there's easy money sitting around. Like, there's not, in a market like this, like you almost should have no red days in a week for the most part. 1 every 2 weeks is sufficient. You got to wait your shots. And pullbacks are always easier than ORBs. That's just the case. Good. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. Priorities, JMIA, Workhorse. I possibly may short space later if we double top at that 58. Cool. JMIA is the GOAT. We need a poll on this one. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. AMC, GME are turds. They are turds. If you want to buy them, just make a donation to the Ronald McDonald House. Instead, you'll help some children instead of giving your money away. They are turds. They're disgusting. GME will probably be $10 in a few months anyways. You may catch a quick intraday bounce on them. Obviously this thing's gapping down 90 points. You may catch like a quick, that happens at the open, right? You catch like a quick like whoop, and then they kind of refade. But it's a turd. It's a turd. And not only is it a turd, it's a big gelatinous, smelly turd. It's nasty. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. Let's have some fun. TDOC is also TDOC, OSTK, Big C, these are, daily traders for us at this point, but they are sitting on some support. Cool. B-I-N-G-O, 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 and bingo is his name. Oh, I'd play it. There was a farmer, had a dog, and bingo was his name. Oh, B-I-N-G-O, 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 and bingo was his name. Oh, I like it. Go for it. Cool. I'll be in the chat room doing what I do, which is the do. That's the list, people. We're sticking to it.